So welcome to this WP Beginner workshop on the ultimate WordPress security secrets for a hack-proof site. I'm Ryan. I'm a video creator at WP Beginner. It's nice to meet you all. And I've had a bunch of WordPress sites. I've been working with WordPress for a fairly long time now. And I've got a bit of experience in this security side of things with WordPress. And definitely, yes, I held my hand up. I did have a hack site once, which changed my perspective on things. But I'm not the only member of the WP Beginner team joining us in this workshop. We do have Jeremy in the chat, who's going to help answer any questions. So everyone just say hey to Jeremy. He's going to be helping out. So if you do have any questions during the workshop, just let us know. So first up, why does security matter? Well, keeping your website safe means protecting your hard work, money, and reputation. I think that's fairly obvious. But if you think about how much time and effort you've put into actually creating your website, running it, what it's connected to, it might be a business, it might be your main point of your business. So keeping it safe and keeping it protective is super important in that case. And how hackers often target smaller sites because they'll think they'll be easier to attack. People think that maybe it's better for hackers to focus on bigger sites because there's bigger gains there. But actually, with that, there's probably a lot more protection on those sites. So they look for smaller targets, like smaller sites that might have some vulnerabilities and weaknesses that which we will speak about a bit later. And they can easily manipulate those vulnerabilities and start gaining something from that site. So first question I'm going to ask everyone in the chat, let us know, how easy is it to guess your password or access your login page? So do you use a default login page or have you changed it? And are you, importantly, are you using the same password for several accounts? If you are, you shouldn't be doing that, but we'll talk about that as well. So let us know. Okay, next up. So imagine waking up to find that your site was hacked or completely gone. And I'm going to tell you a little story about me. So basically, one of my first sites I ever had was a portfolio site. And one day I woke up to my hosting provider sending me an email that basically told me that they had blocked access to the site because it's seen some crazy activity from my site. And when I took a look at the site, it was basically doing everything. It was redirecting to some sites you wouldn't want to be associated with, and pop-ups and much more. Hackers had actually found a vulnerability in my site and added malware, and also started adding their own users to be able to log in and out the site whenever they wanted. And at that time, I pretty much had none of the things that we're going to talk about in this workshop. So I had pretty much no protection on the site. And I didn't even have a backup of the site. So I couldn't get the site fixed and I didn't have a backup. So what did I have to do? I had to delete the whole site and start from scratch. And that just cost me time. But from your perspective, imagine waking up and finding your site hacked or gone. How long would it take to recover from that? And what would it cost for you? So for me, I could do the site myself and rebuild it, but it took me my time. For you, it might be a lot more, and it might have a bigger impact on you and your business. So for this, a hack site can cost you downtime. Obviously, your time, your energy, the stress of the site being down or having to take the site down and rebuild a site or fix the problem. But this also can have an impact financially on you as well if it's your business website. And actually, a hack site can lower your Google rankings. For this, Google can add security warnings on sites if it detects that might have been hacked, and it will show warnings to any visitors, basically telling them that this site might be hacked. And that can have a bit of an impact on traffic because people will return to search to look for similar businesses, sites that they can visit that haven't got that warning. Where websites have malware, which adds spammy links and phishing pages, Google can also give penalties as it violates the Google Webmaster Guidelines, and this can decrease rankings as well. Google can actually also blacklist sites that spread malware and scams. So if they deem a site to have this kind of stuff on it, they can exclude that site from search until that is resolved for that website. So that lowers your Google rankings, but also makes people to lose trust in you as well. Because if visitors see things like the warnings, the spammy links, pop-ups, redirects, things like that, people just won't come back to the site. And as most people know, if someone doesn't use a site for a particular reason, they're going to change their whatever site they use and choose something else, basically, because they've lost trust in that site. So for this, I just want you to remember small businesses and blogs are just as much at risk as big companies. Okay, so now, how does a site get hacked? Well, it's not just people sitting on computers trying to hack your site. Hackers actually use programs or scripts that automatically search for weak spots on websites. And as things get more advanced, these hackers have more programs, more bots, which can go and do these things for them automatically. So it's not someone sitting behind a computer necessarily looking for these weaknesses on every single website they visit. They've basically got software and programs that can do this for them, and they can do them en masse. So some of the common weak spots on a website: passwords that are easy to guess. And for this, yeah, it's those passwords basically that people use that are frequently used by a lot of people. They have a library of them that they can test out. And they use things like a brute force attack, which basically attempts numerous passwords and username combinations to see if it can get the right password username combination on a site. And that's a piece of software that will run that for them automatically. Also, out-of-date WordPress core plugins and themes. These can sometimes have vulnerabilities which hackers know of or bots can scan for on websites. So any of the bots, basically the software that hackers use, they can do vulnerability scanning and automatically scan for any known vulnerabilities or outdated software plugins, things like that, to which then they can use to access the site. Also, another one is having admin as a username. Sometimes sites are set up in a way where they will have the admin account with admin as a username. This is less frequent, but changing that username also helps because that's something that they understand happens. And also using the default login page. If they know where your login page is, then it's easier for them to be able to access and put in login credentials. And because WordPress is so widely used, most people know the default WordPress login page. Another way hackers do it, it's not on here as well, but some common weak spots they have is they also use spam. So they spam websites. They flood websites with spam comments or form submissions that have links to malicious websites that can also cause problems with your website. So how do you test for security issues? Well, there is a fantastic free tool that helps find malware and security issues completely for free. So you can use this completely for free. And to access it, I believe Jeremy's going to drop the link to it in the chat, but it's the Isit WP Security Scanner. And if you follow the link, basically all you need to do is go to the security scanner and enter your website URL, hit scan website, and it will start scanning right away. And once you've done that, you can see the results and see if there's any problems or risks. So this is the WP Beginner website that I put through. And as you can see, it's all clear. So this is a good start. This is a good way of seeing whether your site has had any malware put on it. So now we've talked about how sites are hacked and how you can scan your site to see if there's any malware on it already. Once you've done that, I'm now going to give you some simple security fixes that you can do on your site today. And most of these are free, I think. I think they're all free, pretty much. And you can do this even if you're a beginner. So I'm going to run through these. And the number one thing you should be doing when thinking about security in your site, or even in your site in general, is having a backup of your site. Because having a backup of your site is basically your safety net in case something goes wrong. So it doesn't need to be focused around security, but having a backup of your site helps if something happened to your site and malware was added to the site, you could always restore the backup that you have of your site that you know had no malware on it. So using a reliable backup plugin like Duplicator to automate backups and store copies off site is a fantastic thing. The second fix is find a secure host. Now, this might be a bit obvious, but having a secure host is your first line of defense, really. So having a backup is your safety net. A good hosting provider is your first line of defense. So you want to look for hosting that offers a free SSL certificate. So an SSL certificate is basically a secure socket layer. And you may have seen this when you visit a website. If you look in the browser or the search bar, when you visit that website, you'll see a tiny padlock in the left-hand corner, or the left-hand part of the search bar next to the domain name. And that shows you that that site has an SSL certificate. And what that SSL certificate does is it encrypts and scrambles the data sent between your browser and the website. So it makes it harder to read. So if your host offers a free SSL certificate, that's a great step. If your host offers regular backups, as we've talked about before, that's also a fantastic step. And many good hosting providers actually do daily backups of websites and weekly backups of websites. So it's a good idea to check your hosting provider and make sure that they provide that. And also they'll have it built-in security measures as well, like firewalls and malware scans. So a firewall is basically kind of like your security guard for your website, or a security guard for your server, basically. And what the firewall will do is it will monitor the traffic in and out of your site and just make sure that that traffic is the right kind of traffic. And it checks that against a bunch of rules and things like that. But it's really good things to have from a hosting provider. And we recommend Bluehost as a hosting provider. And you get all this within your Bluehost account. So if you have a website on Bluehost, you'll get the firewall, the backups, and the SSL certificate. And Jeremy's going to drop a link to a Bluehost, which will give you a really good deal as well. So if you're thinking about moving to a hosting or starting a new site, check out Bluehost for that. Okay, so the third fix here is to update WordPress plugins and themes. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. Keeping everything updated ensures that you're protected from weaknesses that hackers can exploit. Hackers often know what these vulnerabilities are with certain plugins, themes, and the WordPress core. If you haven't updated to the latest version of any of those, then they haven't they haven't been updated, and a security patch hasn't been added to that update. So basically, you don't have that security in place. So a lot of really, really good plugin and theme companies will monitor their own plugins and themes for these vulnerabilities. Often they can be exposed in one way or another. And then these companies work really hard to put an update up, which is going to fix that vulnerability for that product. So that's why it's a really good idea to keep everything updated, because these companies are doing this all the time, and they're trying to make sure their products are super secure for your site. Okay, so the fourth fix that we're going to talk about here is to remove unused plugins and themes from your site. So I think we've all been here where we've all been in the position where we've got a bunch of plugins, maybe a couple of themes as well on the site, and some of them we're not using. Maybe some of them are deactivated and we're not using. And these can also, over time, especially when you're running a business online and things like that, you might not think about these things too much, and they might not get updated or might just get left. And then unused plugins and themes can become an entry point for hackers if they're left outdated. So it's a good idea to regularly review and delete anything you're not actively using, just so that you keep everything nice and clean for yourself in WordPress, and it's easier to manage as a whole. Okay, so the fifth fix here is strengthen your login credentials. We talked about how passwords are one of the easiest ways for hackers to get into your site, and they can use a bunch of things to be able to access through passwords. Something you can do to strengthen your own password management and store passwords is basically to strengthen, use a unique password for each site. And you can do that by yourself. Something a security expert once told me is to use a passphrase, something that might be quite memorable to you, but is a bunch of words. Maybe capitalize each word, then add some digits to it, some numbers to it, and some symbols at the end. That could be one way of doing it. But a password manager like 1Password or LastPass will actually help you create really strong passwords for any of your accounts. I actually use 1Password personally, and that as a solution for me, as I have lots and lots of accounts that I access all the time, is fantastic. I only have to remember 1Password. The same for LastPass. You only have to remember 1Password to access your password. Access 1Password or LastPass, and then that piece of software will create strong, unique passwords and store them safely for you. So it's a really good option if you haven't got anything that you're managing passwords with. If you're storing them in docs or sheets or Notepad on your computer, please don't do that. Try out something like 1Pass or LastPass to help create and store those safely. It's actually a game changer for me, and it really helps. And it also stops people that might get into the habit of using the same password for different things as well. Because in the past, those vulnerabilities have been exposed through data leaks, where hackers will gain passwords and usernames from a specific tool or site, and then they'll use them to try and access accounts that those users might have, especially if they know users are basically going to be using the same password again and again and again. So yeah, definitely check that out. I believe they both have free trials or free accounts that you can use. Okay, second one, we said don't use admin as your username. Instead, when you're in the WordPress dashboard, you can create a new admin user with a different name and delete the old admin account. It's also a good idea to have a different name to any of the authors that might be on the site as well for your admin user, just so that someone can't engineer username and passwords from any of the information that you have on your site. Okay, so a couple of things we're going to look at here is WPS hide login, which basically takes away the issue of people finding your login page on WordPress or using the default login page on WordPress. It's very easy to use plugin. It's not a major security step, but it's a nice to have. And I'm going to show you this on my site and just walk you through how you use this. It's very simple. And another thing we're going to look at is WP two-factor authentication. So you can turn on two-factor authentication, and you can add a one-time code from your phone for extra security. So you may have this on your Google accounts. A lot of companies are using this now, where you'll try and log into your account and then it'll ask you to either use a two-factor authentication. I can't say that word. Two-factor authentication code that's sent to you by email, or use an app on your phone to type in the code that you see on your phone onto your desktop's computer. So I'm going to show you these now. I'm going to switch to sharing my screen. So you should be able to see the screen now. So go to WPS hide login. And all you need to do with WPS hide login is, like any other plugin that I'm going to show you in this workshop, basically you just go to the plugins repo directory. So plugins, add new plugin, search the WordPress repository and type it in, and you'll be able to see this, then install and activate. And once you've added WPS hide login, it's super simple. It's right here. And all you need to do is change the end of the URL here to whatever you want. So make it unique to you, and make sure you write it down somewhere so that you know where it is. But it's a really great way of an easy way to change that login URL. You can also add in a redirection URL as well. So if someone tries to access your login page, you can send them back to the home page, or as you can see here, a 404 page if you want to. And then with WordPress two-factor authentication, once it loads, you can see there's a lot of settings here within WordPress two-factor authentication, but actually the setup wizard process is really easy to use. And the main things you want to look at here are the primary two-factor authentication methods. Basically, you can get the one-time code via a two-factor authentication app on your phone, and it does, if you visit the list here, it'll give you all of the authorization apps that you can have on your phone, things like Google authorization and some other things as well. I use the Google one. It's really, really good. And then you can also have a one-time code via email. So it'll be delivered to your email address and you can access that way as well. Really cool option here as well is to enforce two-factor authentication on all users or specific users and roles on your website. So if you've got multiple people that can access your website, it's a really good idea for you not to just strengthen your own access to the website, but also require them to also use two-factor authentication to access the site as well, especially if they've got higher roles on the website, admin, things like that, editor and things like that. So I'll stop sharing the screen now. And we'll just go back to the slides. Okay, so that's those two things. And like I said, the two-factor authentication thing is really, really good. And can stop people like those brute force attacks and things like that in their tracks, because no one's going to be able to have access to the authentication codes that you get to either your email or phone unless they have access to them right away. Okay, so now let's look at some essential security plugins for your site. So let's look at some of the ones that can take your site to the next level. The first one, and the one we talked about earlier, is Duplicator, and this is even the Duplicator Lite version. It's a really great plugin, and it gives you plenty of things. So it provides secure backups, backup schedule, cloud storage, one-click restore, website cloning, and much more. And you can create a website backup in just a few minutes. It's super powerful. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'm just going to show you Duplicator at work. So we'll go to Duplicator Pro. So I've got the Pro version of Duplicator on this demo site right now. But actually, I'll show you the bits where you can get it in a light version as well. So Duplicator is super simple to use, and to literally have a backup of your site, all you need to do is go to Backups, click on Add New. And then you'll see this new backup screen. You can give your backup a name. So at the moment it's using dynamic tags. That's the Pro feature, but you can give it whatever name you want. So and then the templates are part of the Duplicator Pro. So if you're thinking of, if you want to use that, you can use that, but you don't need to. So the next option here is you can in the storage. And with Duplicator, you can actually choose multiple locations to back up your site to. So with the light version of Duplicator, you get the option to save to the default local backup, basically. So that'll be a backup saved on your server with your site files. But in Duplicator Pro, you get the option to back up to multiple locations, which can be Amazon, AWS, Google Drive, Dropbox, anything like that, FTP, anything like that. So you've got more options to have multiple backups in multiple locations. With the default local, you do get the option to download that to your own computer as well. So you can save it on your computer or on a hard drive, or move it to any of those options if you want. But if you want to do it straight from one backup, one click, then you can do that with Duplicator Pro. We click on the backup information here. You can choose in the light version to do a full site backup or a database only backup. At the moment, we're going to do a full site backup. So I'm just going to close these. And then you don't need to do anything else. So literally for a backup, all you'd need to do is do the backup name if you want to. It does give you a default name that you can use. Click on next. And then on this scan complete screen, it will just tell you that it scanned your website just to make sure everything's good for the backup. And you can click on any of these to see more information. And then once you're ready to create the backup and everything's okay, just click on Create Backup. And it literally does it within a couple of minutes. So once you've done the backup, this is what it looks like on this screen. So I've got one backup here, and you can download the backup to your computer. And then if your site was inaccessible, let's say it was completely inaccessible, you couldn't get on it, what you do then with those files that you download, you'd use FTP or something like your file manager through your hosting provider to add those files to the site using the instructions that Duplicator gives you. And it has an installer file on with that backup that basically allows you to visit the installer URL and then go through the step-by-step process of restoring that backup if your site was completely inaccessible. So it's really, really powerful and absolutely fantastic. It really is a game changer for anyone that wants to, have that protection and that peace of mind with their website. Just quickly as well, with Duplicator Pro, you do get the option to schedule backups. So again, you can do everything that I'm talking about here manually. You just go in and you do a new backup whenever you want. But if you want the option and the peace of mind and the hands-off approach, you can schedule a backup quite easily by clicking on Add New. And then you can set the schedule information as you want. So you can give the schedule a name. So we can call this weekly. We can use a backup template if we want to. So if you've something that you've predefined first, configured how you want that backup to be, you can use that backup template. You can choose the storage for each of your backups. So for this scheduled backup, you could have it in multiple locations. I'll show you the locations in a minute, but you could have it on multiple locations or in just 1 or 2 locations. You can choose how often this backup repeats. So whether it's weekly, as we've kind of defined right here, daily, or hourly, depending on how big your site is, how much information you have on it, how updated it is. So if you update it regularly, then you might want to have those kind of increments instead of weekly. Weekly can be fine. And then you can choose what day of the week you want it to run the backup on and what the start time of that is as well. And then once you've filled in or configured that completely, you click on Save Schedule, and that will save that schedule and run that schedule on the time and date that you have defined in this. And then if we look at the storage, just leave that. So we've got the default local storage added here, but you can add a new storage by clicking on Add New. And then just like with the schedules, you can give the storage a name, add some notes, and then you can choose the type of storage, so where it's going to be stored from this list here on the drop-down list. So we've got local FTP, OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Amazon S3, Google Cloud Storage, and much, much more. So it's a really robust feature and really, really fantastic if you want to add multiple storage locations and not just have the local one. So yeah, that's what Duplicator Pro can do as well. But Duplicator Lite is fantastic to getting started, free to use. Just going to stop sharing the screen. And we'll get back to the presentation. Okay, so that's Duplicator and everything that Duplicator does. The next plugin that we're going to recommend is Securi. And this is free to use as well and free to get started with from the WordPress repository as well. And Securi offers things like activity tracking, file change alerts, malware scanning, blacklist warnings, website security, hat recovery, and much more. So some of this is offered in the Lite version, and then there are some paid features like the website firewall and things like that. I'll show you what Securi looks like on my demo site as well. So we'll just go to security. And this is what the Securi dashboard looks like once you install. So Securi is already working, scans the website. As you can see here, it says core WordPress files were modified on this demo site. I know that it's got no malware on it, and it's telling me down here the site is actually clean, no malicious JavaScript or anything like that. But it's nice to see that it's working and it's pulled 2 things out for my attention so that I can get them checked out or have take a look at them when I get those alerts. You can also see here in the audit logs that it's tracking every single activity that takes place on the site. So this is fantastic for anyone that wants to be able to see the things that happened on the website to lead up to a problem, or whether there's someone accessing through a username, password, and changing things on the site. And that helps you just strengthen your access to your site even more, but also gives you peace of mind that you can actually see everything that's going on the site, what actions were taken, and then you can use that information to help secure your site a little bit more. Like I mentioned, you do get a firewall, so web application firewall installed with this. But this feature is a paid feature. So I believe on Security's website, it was something like around $9.99 a month to connect to the firewall. So you can check that out on their website. It is a great addition to have. So you can have a firewall on your server side, so something that your hosting provider provides, but you can also have a firewall active on this side, on your site side. So that's your security guard on your site, basically making sure that it shields against any attacks from malware, brute force attacks, things like that. So this is a fantastic thing to kind of look at if you feel like your site needs it. But the number one thing to think about here is, you don't need this to keep secure. You can use a bunch of these suggestions all together, and as long as you have a backup of your site using Duplicator or something like Duplicator to back your site up, then you've got that peace of mind if something was to happen that you'd be able to restore to that backup. The other settings that Security has as well, and these can be quite vast and in-depth, so you don't have to go into all of these. They do make a bunch of recommendations of things that you can turn on your site. So there's general settings here, but there's the scanner basically. So this will show you all the things that it's going to be scanning and when it's going to be scanning them. You've got hardening, so you've got advice here on things that you could do to the site, and it's just a one click for most of these things. If you hover over the little icon here, it will tell you a bit more about this. And there's a few of these that it does warn you basically to be careful when applying these hardening options, because they can mess with the site a little bit and how the site's set up. So you just have to be a bit careful with them. But some of these are really good features to have. But yeah, we won't go all into all of this because some of it does get into a bit more technical. But it's nice to know that this plugin is available and it's free, and you can add these and it can help boost the security of your site. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing this. And we'll put the presentation back on. Okay, so, and part of that security as well, which I didn't show you actually, is that it does do, it does let you know via email basically. So you've got alerts that you can set up to multiple email addresses. So if it sees something that's going on your site or needs to warn you about, it will send you an email as well to let you know that that's happened on the site, and you can take action that way. So you don't have to constantly log into your site to see any of the warnings that security has. It will send them to your email address as well, so you'll be able to pick them up on your phone and whatever. Okay. So next thing we're going to look at is how to keep on top of your security, your site security. So what habits can keep your site secure? And we're going to look at just a list of things that we can put into practice. And I'd recommend doing these things maybe once a month, at least once a month, maybe more, depending on how big the site is, how many people you have that can have access to your site on the admin side of things, on the dashboard side of things, and then you can make your mind up on how frequently you want to do these. But just going over some of the things that we've mentioned in this workshop, basically back up your site regularly using plugins like Duplicator. It's a really good thing to do, and I advise everyone, if that's the one thing they take away from this, is basically make sure you back up your site, because as you remember in my story, I didn't have a backup of my site and it hurt me in my time and energy I had to put back into sorting that out. Regularly check all user accounts on your site to ensure only authorized users have access. So this is really important as well. When you're doing your monthly, weekly, whatever check, just check the people that have access to your site are the right kind of people the people that you've given access, and not someone that's basically found a vulnerability and set themselves up a user account to be able to access kind of covertly without you noticing. And then make sure all passwords are strong and updated if necessary. So encourage the people around you in your business, anyone that's using the site, to use strong passwords, and even software like 1Password, LastPass, something like that, and make sure those passwords updated regularly. So if you can try and update your password every 6 months, that's a fantastic thing. But using things like 1Pass, LastPass also help you use strong passwords. Next up is update WordPress plugins and themes whenever new versions are available. So we've gone over that a few times. Do double check if you get any problems with themes or plugins that you update and it causes any problems. You can always reach out to the teams. Sometimes that's what hold people back, is from updating plugins and themes. They worry that those updates might cause problems. They won't. But if they do, you can always reach out to the teams that build those plugins and themes, let them know you've got a problem with anything that's updated. Also, remove plugins and themes you're not using to reduce potential risk. And I think I had another one here. Okay, yeah, so I did write a note for myself, actually, because I didn't put it down on here, but something that a lot of people don't do, or a lot of people that I know don't do very often, is log out of things once they've finished working on them. So basically, once you've finished working on your site, it's a really good practice just to log out. A lot of people might do it, but some people don't, and that can be a vulnerability as well. So something to add to your list. If you every time you use your site, just make sure you log out after you finish with it. Okay, so something else that we can recommend here as well, and if you're not going to add security, because I showed you this on security as well, but WP activity log is a good thing to keep an eye on changes on your site. And basically these logs are records of who makes changes and what they change, as you saw with security. But if you're not using security for any reason, this is another great plugin to use. And some people might not think about this, but Google Search Console actually allows you to see any security related issues Google detects. So this could be a point of call for you as well, just to check your Google Search Console now and again as well, and add that to your checklist when you do your monthly, weekly checklist for security, to just check your Google Search Console and see if Google's flagged up anything. Because if they've flagged up anything, like I mentioned earlier, anything they do flag up and detect, they usually take a bit of action on. So it could be harming your site in one way or another, but it's always good to know, and these things can be fixed. And a good way, if you haven't got Google Cloud Console, Google Search Console set up, then one way to do that is to use Monster Insights to help connect Google Search Console to your website, and also help you connect up to Google Analytics as well. And that will show you all your analytics within the WordPress dashboard, so you don't have to go to Google Analytics to actually see that. Okay. So because you're here, and because we really appreciate the time that you've taken to join our workshop, and hopefully I've given you a lot of value, and there's a lot of answers to questions that you might have. I'm sure we're going to look at some questions in a minute, but because you're here, and I'm not sure how many people know about WP Beginner Pro services. If you do know about it, drop it in the chat, let us know. But we want to give you 10% off WP Beginner Pro services. And if you don't know much about WP Beginner Pro services, we have services that are for website design, for website maintenance, any kind of emergency website problems you can contact us about, and also security issues, hacked websites. We do fix hacked websites, and also we have a package for SEO as well. So our professional team can help you out with that. With the site maintenance service, we handle regular updates, backups, and security checks to keep your site running smoothly and secure. And our team monitors your site 24/7 to identify potential and fix potential issues before they become a problem. A hacked site repair, basically, if your site gets hacked, will repair it quickly and ensure it's safe for you to use. It also includes malware removal, restoring backups, and hardening your site to prevent future attacks. And the reason you should use WP Beginner Pro services is because basically our team specializes in WordPress security and maintenance, and we can handle all the technical work so you can focus on running your business, basically. So that's peace of mind, and you know that your site is secure and in good hands. So if anything in this workshop is a little bit too technical, or you want to just hand that off to someone else, WP Beginner Pro services is a fantastic option. And for that, 10% off, use the coupon code WPB special. I believe Jeremy is going to drop the link to WP Beginner Pro services now, or has done already. So yeah, just use that coupon code for any of the pro services. That's web design, maintenance, SEO, hack sites, security, things like that. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining this workshop. And I appreciate you all. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much.